Section 14.2 is all about the flaws of the voting methods. Mathematicians and political scientists have agreed that a voting method should meet the following 4 criteria in order for the voting method to be considered fair: the majority criterion, the head-to-head criterion, the monotonicity criterion, and the irrelevant alternatives criterion. The majority criterion basically says if a candidate receives a majority, which is more than 50% of the first place votes, that candidate should be declared the winner. So where you have to be careful on this one is the Borda count method, because sometimes on the Borda count method, a candidate who does not have the majority will win, and a candidate who does will not. So be on the lookout for that. The second criterion is the head-to-head criterion. If a candidate is favored when compared head-to-head with every other candidate, then that candidate should be declared the winner. If that candidate is not, then they have a head-to-head criterion flaw. The only voting method that does not have the potential to violate the head-to-head criterion is the pairwise comparison. Every other voting method, the Borda, the plurality, the plurality with elimination, they all have the potential to violate this. So make sure you check when you're going through your examples. Next is the monotonicity criterion. A candidate who wins the first election and then gains additional support without losing any of the original support should also win a second selection. So the most common time you're going to see this is in a repeated election, often called a straw vote. So it's one that's followed by another vote. So frequently before an election starts, voters will discuss the candidates, their strengths, and their weaknesses. Prior to holding an official election, voters may take a straw vote to gain a preliminary measure of the candidate's strength. After discussions, some voters may decide to change their preferences. If a candidate gains votes at the expense of other candidates, then this candidate's chances of winning should increase. If that candidate was already leading, then the candidate should still win with additional votes. So sometimes when you do repeated elections, the person that was in the lead and gains strength actually ends up losing. And if this happens, this is a very strange flaw. It is called the monotonicity flaw. You'll see this a lot in the plurality with elimination voting method. So just be on the lookout for that. So it is possible for the winner of the first election to gain additional support before the second election and then lose. And if that happens, then that's a flaw of the voting method. The last flaw we're going to talk about is the irrelevant alternatives criterion. So if a candidate is declared the winner of an election, and then in a second election, one or more of the other candidates is removed, then the previous winner should still be declared the winner. If not, then something has happened, something is wrong with your voting process, and you may need to go back and evaluate the procedure. So this is just a summary of the voting methods and whether they satisfy the fairness criteria. So notice the plurality voting method. It can have issues in a head-to-head competition. It can also have issues in irrelevant alternatives. The Borda count voting method has issues all the way across the board with all 4 fairness criteria. The plurality with elimination is going to have issues everywhere except the majority vote. And then the pairwise comparison has issues for monotonicity and irrelevant alternatives. Notice that no one voting method fulfills all of the fairness criteria. This was actually proven by an economist, and his name is Arrow. His full name, is Kenneth Arrow. And he proved that it is mathematically impossible for any democratic voting method to simultaneously solve each of the fairness criteria. So no matter which method you go with, you have to be careful because at least one of the criterion needs to be checked to make sure that it's not violated.